Wait a minute, yeah.
I'd like to call the meeting to order, begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Mr. Otter, have a call on the roll, please.
Mr. Thacker, Mr. Norris, Ms. Thies,
Here.
Ms. Weger,
Here.
Ms. Wilson,
Here.
Mr. Thompson, Mr. Loudermilk.
Here. Thank you. I'd like to open this time for public comment. Appears there is none. Moving on, we will just shift the order of things. Rather than have communication with elected officials at this time, we will go ahead and start with the presentation from WIS Associates regarding the proposed employee compensation plan. So we have Addie here with us. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. We're happy to hear from you, and you can start whenever you'd like.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you for having me tonight. A little bit about myself. I'm one of the principal consultants with Wagner, Irwin & Sheely. Been with the firm for over 20 years. A little bit about the firm. Our firm has been in business for over 40 years. We work primarily conducting management and human resources consulting in the public sector with government agencies primarily. We have been engaged, in Indiana, WIS has been engaged by 80 of the 92 Indiana counties and 70 cities and towns. We specialize in developing personnel policies, job classification and compensation studies, preparing job descriptions, policy administration, handling complaints, and supervisor training. We've been around a long time. We understand Indiana County government. We're active in developing HR programs for AIC and the County Commissioners Association, and are featured speakers for both those associations. And we're scheduled to speak at the AIC annual conference this year. So we're looking forward to that. Just a little history for those that haven't worked with us before. We have been working with Vigo County since 2014. At that time, we were engaged by the county to prepare personnel policies for the county, as well as conduct a job classification and compensation study. The job classification study involved creating job descriptions for all full-time and part-time positions, positions using the factor evaluation system, and assigning points using the guide charts, conducting an internal salary analysis comparing your factor points to your current pay schedules, and conducting an external salary analysis and how you compare to the external market. At that time, during that project, we found that the county's compensation system consisted of 21 grade levels and 40 step levels. There was no definition of the grades or the steps or how someone moved through them. When we asked, no one could explain why a position was classified as a 7 or an 8. So part of the 2015 project was classifying all your positions, rooting them in factor points, so you had a clear definition as to why a job was classified where it was. So since the county's implementation of the job class system in 2016, we have been assisting the county in maintaining the system on an as-needed basis. So some of that maintenance includes updating job descriptions, looking at FLSA status, preparing new job descriptions for new positions, and providing consultation as needed, and then assisting with job classification review requests that come in from department heads or employees, elected officials. So that's kind of what we've been doing and working with the county, so our relationship has been ongoing. So some of you are new and weren't here when we implemented the system, so I just want to give a brief little background to the factor evaluation system. We did provide a handout, so I'm just going to kind of hit the highlights of that handout. The factor evaluation system was developed by the U.S. Department of Labor for public sector entities. It's a system that is not proprietary to our firm or to any others. It's been implemented throughout Indiana. The state of Indiana uses it, and numerous cities and towns throughout Indiana use this system as well. What's unique about the factor evaluation system is that it sorts jobs into job categories. So you're only comparing like jobs to each other. Then there are guide charts that assign factor evaluation points to various elements of the position. And there are a different set of guide charts for each job category. And so 300 points in the PAT category is not the same as 300 points in the LTC category. So the end result is that you end up with a pay plan for each category, and then a compensation system based on the market value of those like jobs in that category. The factor evaluation system allows you to conduct internal analysis as well as an external that helps you establish and ensure equal pay for equal work. The job descriptions are comprehensive and follow the FBS format. The main components of the job descriptions include your job requirements, skill and knowledge, difficulty of work, responsibility, personal work relationships, physical effort, and your work environment, working conditions. There are 4 main categories of the FBS system, and we've kind of listed some sample job titles on page 2 of the handout, and there are some more detailed definitions on pages 4 and 5. But the four categories are your PAT, professional, administrative, technological, your COMET positions, computer, office machine, operation technician, pole positions, protective occupations, law enforcement, and your labor, trades, and crafts positions. So basically, once all the job descriptions get factored and assigned points, they get classified into levels. So you're grouping like classified jobs together into levels and then assigning pay for each classification level within that job category. And we use a regression analysis to establish a pay line for each job category, not only internally but also externally based on the external data collected. The market data is weighted heavily for public sector employers or other government entities that are comparable. We look at surrounding counties, similar size counties, counties with similar demographics, have a university, so we might be looking at other counties that have that similar demographic. And then we also will supplement that with some private sector data, some surveys that we use, but really focusing on where you're competing, who you're competing with directly, and comparing you with other like jobs. We will use benchmark positions. So in the government, a lot of other counties use this system, so it's easy to match up positions and collect that comparative data to present to you. Also provided in your packet, back in June, we were asked to provide 2 quotes to the county. One was to conduct just a salary analysis And that would consist of just a general survey of the market salary and providing the county with updated external midpoint salaries and an external salary range. So we've provided that offer of services. The timeline of completion for that is 4 months, but that would just be the external salary piece. It would be, it wouldn't include any other job description or any other review of factor points or anything along those lines. The second offer of services was basically a complete job classification and compensation update. So it'd kind of be redoing what we did initially, where we would conduct meetings with elected officials and department heads, collect the job information. Those meetings with department heads could be via Zoom or in person, whatever your preference is. We've been doing most of our work remotely through Zoom, but if you have a preference for in person, we can work that out. We would be distributing the existing job descriptions to department heads and employees, give them an opportunity to make changes to those job descriptions, provide additional feedback through the interviews, discuss any concerns that they have with any positions. If there were major changes, we would work with the department to make those changes in the job description. If they were going through a restructure, we would be there to help with that as well. So we would take all those changes, prepare updated job descriptions for the county with an updated either 2021 or a 2022 date. We would do a review of the FES factoring for each job, looking at and selecting if there are specific jobs that need a thorough review, and conducting again an internal and an external salary analysis. And also included would be a Fair Labor Standards Act analysis, where we'd be looking at the treatment of positions, whether they're exempt, non-exempt, or excluded for compliance with federal and state wage and hour laws. The timeline for this project would be 7 to 9 months. It would consist of 6 steps that are spelled out in the letter of engagement. Basically, step 1, meeting with the county officials, conducting the meetings with elected officials and department heads. Step 2, reviewing and updating those job descriptions. Step 3, identifying jobs to be refactored, reviewing the existing factoring, and then point factoring, classifying any new jobs that you've added since the implementation that may not have been factored or classified yet. Step 4, conducting an updated salary analysis. Again, looking at that internal pay line to see if there's any internal pay equity concerns. And then again, conducting the external salary analysis so you can see how you compare against the external market, and give you some guidance for making adjustments in pay going forward. Step 5, again, would be the FLSA analysis, and then the last step would include providing a report of findings and recommendations to the county officials. As we did in 2015, at the conclusion of the project, we also provide a maintenance plan, which we did in 2015, that provides a process for maintaining the system. At that time, it consisted of a personnel committee, which was a subcommittee of council. It also consisted of the auditor, HR, and the council administrator, who were non-voting participants but were included in that. And we did at that time, I think one other time, conducted some training on the system and how it was used, how the guide charts were used. So again, we will gladly provide that as well. And that's all included in the cost for the project. And I believe the last document you have is just a sample of the FES guide charts. It's one of the pages from the it's factor 1 for the LTC category. So it kind of gives you an idea of how what the score sheets look like and how they're established. And then again, like I mentioned, they are different for each job category, and the scoring is different. So in the LTCs, they're going to be weighted more with the physical effort, the work environment is going to be weighted more heavily because they're more hands-on jobs than what you would have in the POW or the comment that are primarily not known for their heavy lifting. That's not what those jobs are designed for. So, but it gives you an idea of a little sample of what they look like. And that's basically what I have to present today, and I would be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Addie. Questions from council?
I have a comment. I was reading here that you have 80 of the 92 counties in Indiana that you work with. So you're, as I understand it, you're government heavy in your expertise, so that you're very well aware of the county's situation, I guess is the best way to put it. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. We are very well aware of how Indiana County government works. We were very respectful of the independent elected official offices and those department heads, and how the inner workings of county government interplay, and the nuances that do arise with having individual elected officials. It is different than some of our surrounding states. But we work 99% in Indiana with county government and cities and towns as well, but primarily county government.
Since we're broadcasting, could you tell everybody what the AIC stands for that you work with?
Sure, sorry about that.
That's okay.
It's the Association of Indiana Counties.
Okay, thanks.
It sounds like you did the work in 2014, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
I was part of that project, yes.
In most of the counties or situations that you work with, how often is I don't know how to call it, either a reevaluation or a reboot? Like, what's the typical time frame that we do that? And then the second part of that is when you do have those kind of reevaluations, is there typically a lot of change to what you initially did?
It varies a little bit. The maintenance, I would say, for the salary analysis, those that have an ongoing maintenance will do a updated salary increase every 2 or 3 years. I'd probably on average. To do a whole class, like a widespread job classification update, is one of the proposals, is less likely to occur. I can tell you, because we just wrapped this project up in Monroe County, they have conducted 3 of these very similar type projects since 2006. So that gives you kind of a time frame. I would say some that have, especially if they're not maintained very well, you're looking at probably 8 to 10 years when we will get asked to come back and look at them. Ones that have been maintained ongoing very, very closely, it's just very minor changes. Ones that the longer you go, we tend to see more changes in the classifications. And they're all a little bit unique, so it's kind of hard to just give you a hard answer. But generally, if it's not been maintained real well, and there's a longer span between reviews, you're going to have more changes. Your system, from our perspective, has been pretty well maintained. We've been involved here and there with some questions. We've assisted with some job descriptions. We've been involved in several job classification reviews. And for the most part, we don't know all the things that go on with the council and what the decisions are at the meetings, but for the most part, I think we've done a pretty good job of maintaining the system and keeping things intact.
Here, I'm gonna take this down just for a second. When was the last time, and again, just not knowing, because I'm new to this, that we did a salary analysis here in Vigo County? Like, you said that it's recommended every 2 to 3 years to have a salary analysis. So when's the last one that we had done?
We have not done one since that 2015 project. I know when that project was done, there were some goals made at first. There was to correct some internal pay equities. And then I believe the next couple years was trying to shift and make effort to move towards the external salary ranges, like external minimum salary, trying to get positions moved up to that range. And I think Melissa can probably provide a little bit more detailed history exactly what has been done each year. But then I think just making some cost of living adjustments over time after that point.
And then, sorry, one more question. As far as the ongoing relationship, what is then the role of working with HR? What kinds of resources do they have? Is it mainly just reaching out to you, or what is kind of the process that we go from then? And then each time that they do, is there a billing involved, or is that included as part of our setup?
Did you
Yeah,
mention a
right now,
panel
we
or
just
something?
had an ongoing kind of HR consulting as needed basis maintenance, and everything is billed hourly, so there's no retainer or no expectation that we're gonna receive so much per month or anything. We just basically just are here for the county when needed. We can assist with anything from policy questions to FMLA, FLSA questions. And then anything job description related, and any compensation questions. I know Melissa over times have had some questions when things come up, as far as in the, I think we had some dispatcher questions with some new changes in the law. So, we're there to help provide any guidance along the way. I'm glad to work with HR and council, or however that's set up.
Did you mentioned something in there about, I'm sorry.
You're
Were you
fine,
finished?
you're
Okay.
fine.
You mentioned something about creating a panel that it consisted possibly of the council and various different groups, not just specifically HR. Is that what you said there was a possibility?
Yes, we, at the end of these projects, we always prepare a job classification maintenance plan. And what we have found over our years of experience, what works well for maintenance is having some sort of job class committee or a personnel committee that generally is a subcommittee of council. Last time when we did this project, it was established that it was 3 council members, the HR director, the council administrator, and the auditor. The 3 council members were the voting members, but basically that committee served as in an advisory capacity to the full council. So if a department brought a job classification review to the committee would review it, and there's this whole process spelled out of how they would go about doing that. And then if the committee felt that they needed an outside consultant, an independent opinion, or if they had concerns, then it was at their discretion to reach out to us and involve us or not. If we were involved, we would do an independent assessment of the job, provide a recommendation back to the committee. And then basically what the committee would do, then they would take all the information and provide a recommendation to the full council, who has the final decision for either approval of the classification change or disapproval, leaving it the same as where it was. So that's just an example of how that works. But the maintenance plan spells out the steps for reviewing a job, for creating a new job. If it's a new job, we would fill out a job questionnaire. The job refactored, it'd be classified just like the same process that all the other jobs went through. And then it'd have to have final final approval through the council.
Okay, thank you. And have you noticed that there've been more requests for reevaluation since COVID has taken place, and a lot of things have been kind of forced to change due to COVID? Have you, has that
No,
increased?
not too much.
Are you seeing things getting back to normal, sort of? Normal?
Yeah, in county government, we found that there are only a kind of a handful of jobs that have been able to work remotely, as it is, service oriented, for most of the jobs. And a lot of the remote work has been temporary, so I haven't seen that affect too many of the classifications, although I have seen regarding the health department in a lot of counties, that's where I've seen probably more reclasses related to either adding some part-time or temporary jobs,
Okay.
or making some changes to the full-time jobs to accommodate and include some of these either COVID clinics or some of the ongoing testing that they're administering. Some of those things we have seen, but it's probably more specific to that department as far as the COVID change.
Thank you. And one other thing, I'm sure that we can ask you to tailor the situation. One thing that was brought up by one of the departments that was questioning, I'm sure you were talking about Zoom meetings or in-person meetings. Can it be arranged to where you have a person from your corporation come in and actually sit and job shadow while the job descriptions are being created, so that you actually get a feel for that office, so that the people in that office really feel like you're going to understand and grade them according to what they actually feel like they do? Is that something that you would be able to do, or that you do, or are you feeling like you
Well,
were?
that would be more of a kind of a desk audit or a more detailed time study type of thing. That's generally not part of the
Evaluation.
general process. If the county had a concern about a job, could come in and conduct a job audit where we would spend more time, probably not all day, but spend more time with the employee, asking more specific questions. But that would not be something it would be very time consuming to do it for all jobs.
Sure. I just know there was one particular department that kind of felt that was a necessity, that they didn't feel like their job was understood, and they would probably appreciate that if they had a little bit more time with somebody.
Yeah,
That's
if
all.
the
Just-
council
that's something.
feels that there are certain jobs that need some more time, we could look at that. That may be an additional cost. It depends how much time
Right.
you're looking at.
Sure.
We did another accounting project, and it was one of those things that they had to as well, that option. We didn't end up using it, but I think they're going to follow up with some of those desk audits
Okay.
since the job classification project was completed.
I-
They have some areas that need to be re-looked at based on findings from the study.
Okay.
So that's a possibility as well, if we find some things as we go that need more in-depth looking, we wouldn't hesitate to point those out to you as well.
Okay, good. I just feel like these people feel like I feel like they need to be heard, and I want them to know that they were heard, and I want to make sure that I cover that so that they know that is a possibility too, that we can do for them.
Right.
Thank you.
Just one more. I'm so sorry. So 2014 was a while ago. Has much changed in your process over these years, or will it be very similar to what you had done in the past, but with just like the changes and things that we've had here locally as far as process goes?
Yeah, it'll be pretty similar to what we did last time. Probably the biggest change might be the Zoom meetings not being in person as much, if that works well for you. I know it is a cost savings. A lot of counties have enjoyed cost savings from not being billed for travel time and those things. So that's probably the biggest difference. But we want to make it what you feel comfortable. So if you want the in person, we'd be glad to do that as well.
Thank you.
Other than the documents you get from a certain department asking to be reevaluated, or do you get any input from anybody else in Vigo County on which direction to head with that job description, as far as a raise or reclassification? You get the job description from a department, correct? If they're asking to be reclassified?
Yes, they get a job description. We usually ask them to mark directly on the description of any changes. And then there's also a job classification review form that asks some specific questions about what's changed in the job, why they're making the request, what's the impact, can the job be done, is there technology that can help the job, and just asking those questions to get a little more information about why they're making the change and kind of what they're hoping to see from the request.
Do you guys solely make that decision? Or is there advice that comes in from anybody in Vigo County saying that job should be reclassified?
We take a independent assessment of the job. We don't let other individuals influence our decision. As far as, obviously, we are just a consultant making a recommendation to either the council or the personnel committee. So we take just an independent look at the system, and we are looking at it kind of through the council eyes, not from the department, not from the employee. We know and we appreciate that all elected officials and department heads, they are advocates for their employees, and we understand that and we know that. But in the job classification system, we are looking at it from the standpoint of the council having to administer a fair and equitable pay system. So we're looking at the position, not the person, and we're also looking at, okay, what is the big picture? If we make this change, this classification change, what is the ripple effect? How is that impact the whole comment category or the whole comment and pat category? Because sometimes those jobs have some overlap. If we make this change, are there other positions that are going to have to move too? And what's the impact on the internal rank structure of that department? Sometimes the requests will come in, and because of other positions that are classified higher that may supervise a position, it's very difficult to reclassify one at the same level with the position that that's supervising them. So we look at all of those things, and also not only comparing, we're not looking just at that one isolated position. We're looking at it, okay, how does the factoring and the job requirements, how do all those elements and factors of the job compare to ones classified at the higher level that they're requesting versus compared to the current level that they're in. And we call it factoring in isolation. So it's really easy to make an argument for one job without considering any of the other jobs in that category or in the county. But we're looking at the big picture and the total impact of that change on the job. And in general, a job has to have a pretty significant change for it to be reclassified. So if it may be a result of a restructure, it could be a result of consolidating two jobs, so they're taking on an added responsibility, or it's generally maybe there's a whole new skill set involved now that they didn't do before, or a whole new certification or degree level that they now have to complete the job. So those are probably the key areas where a job would really warrant a reclassification.
Thank you.
Okay, I promise this is it. Promise. So you're like, uh-oh. So in looking at WIS compared to other consulting firms, what do you ultimately believe makes you stand out for county council, and like what is your biggest strength compared to others?
I think it's just our experience and knowledge of Indiana County government. We have, as I said, we've worked in 80 of the 92 counties. We have clear understanding of the inner workings, and we also are aware that even though each county has an auditor's office, each county has a highway department, they're all structured a little bit differently. In the bigger counties, sometimes you'll find jobs in the auditor's office or other departments that are a little more specialized. Where in smaller counties, you know, because the same statutory functions have to get completed in those departments. So we are completely aware of that, and we pride ourselves in customizing job descriptions and customizing pay plans to meet the needs of the client. So that's why you won't see an identical pay plan. You'll see similarities. You'll see jobs ranked in a similar manner, but they may not be exactly the same composition. It's different. So I think that's probably what we pride ourselves most on, is listening to the client and customizing to fit the needs of the client.
Okay, thank you. I'm done.
Addie, I just have a couple questions. So when agencies start with this process, and once you deliver to them the finalized product, what are you seeing as the biggest challenge at implementation?
Well, the biggest obstacle is funding, of course. You know, we understand that counties can't always fund 100%. So it's really probably implementation is coming up with the best plan to get the county gradually to those goals where they want to be. Just kind of that guidance of helping the county decide what their pay philosophy is, how they want to set up that pay plan once they get that external data. That's probably the most challenging part.
Okay. What about from the employee perspective?
The employee perspective, well, we go into it knowing that we're not going to make everyone happy. We would love to make everyone happy, but we know that's not reality. So for the problematic with implementation is that employees will often they like to cherry pick, so we try to focus on jobs, and we try to get them to focus on kind of the big picture. If they're not in for an adjustment now, you know, we always remind employees that, you know, these pay plans aren't meant to be stagnant or set in stone. So you're not going to be stuck there forever as long as the county is committed to keeping up and moving those pay plans with the market.
Okay. The relationship you have with the other counties in the state of Indiana, is it a direct relationship with the council, or does it involve the commissioners as well, or how does that generally work?
It depends on the county. You know, some of the counties have HR. A lot of them don't. So our contact may be directly with the auditor that work with being able to work with the council or the commissioners. We have signed contracts directly with councils, and then work directly with either a council administrator or a council president or whoever is assigned from the council. We just did that in another southern Indiana county last year, and it worked very well. We had 2 council members that we worked with closely, but everything was contracted directly through the council. We had no relationship, no working relationship as far as on the job class with the commissioners. So sometimes the counties will have a joint group from commissioners and council. So again, it is, every county is a little different and how those relationships work. So we're flexible and can set it up however it works best for you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from council? All right. Thank you, Addie. I appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank
All right,
you.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, I guess we can move on to communications from elected officials, other officials or agencies of the county. If there's anybody that'd like to speak at this time, we can do that. If not, then the council can speak about what we've heard tonight, speak about Baker Tilly, and then also anything else that you care to speak about at this time. So is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak? Appears to be not. I would open up to council for any thoughts or comments. Yes, maybe we start with WIS since the presentation's fresh.
I think the fact that they work with 80 out of 92 counties, I wasn't aware of that. So they pretty much specialize in county government or city and county government, and I didn't realize that.
One of the things that kind of stood out to me, and that's why I had asked about like how often salary analysis and kind of the complete reevaluations take place. It concerned me that we haven't had a salary analysis through that time, and not trying to blame or try to figure out things, but I just want to make sure as we move forward. We have a lot of new people in government. We have a lot of new people in the offices as well, including HR. And I definitely, I think that would help with a lot as well. I just want to make sure that we continue to do that as we move forward. And just one other thing, I know there used to be a personnel committee, is that when we changed the format of having sunshine? Is that kind of what happened with that?
Correct.
So that we're all in the loop and are aware? Okay.
Does that negate having a personnel committee?
No, I think committees could be created at any time. I think the philosophy for going to a sunshine meeting this year was, with such a new council, was just to have everybody on the same page. In essence, we had, out of 7 members, had 3 that had prior experience on this council, and we were running with 3 committees previously, and it just was going to be a challenge with so many new members. So just felt like it was important for everybody to hear the same information at the same time and have ample opportunity to ask questions as they would present themselves in the sunshine meeting. The things that are presented at sunshine meetings are the types of items that would be generally talked about during the committee meetings. I think it's worked out fairly well. Sometimes when we had the committee meetings for one reason or another, and I wouldn't say it was with any necessarily deceit or malice, but at times information wouldn't be relayed to the full council, or maybe not relayed the same. And again, I don't know that there was any underlying tone that created that. I think it was just Sometimes communication gets crossed up, and sometimes the department heads could make it to a committee meeting, not make it to the regular meeting, or maybe a different representative from that department would show up and you get some different information. So this way we all hear the same thing at the same time, and just seemed to me to be more efficient and be a better practice for this year.
Who sat on that committee? Was it just council, or was it kind of like what she had talked about? I mean, obviously, we have like the auditor here when we do sunshine, and commissioners and other staff are, always welcome to come, but.
So for the personnel committee, we had personnel committee, we had budget adjustment committee. We also had the, what else did we have?
Not-
Annual budget,
Yeah,
but we always had 3 members from the council.
from the
on those
council.
committees.
Okay.
President, I do think that your idea of having the sunshine was a tremendous idea. It was very informative for everybody, and we all were up to speed on everything. When we had the committee separate, I mean, I just think we just weren't all up to speed all the time. And you really brought us into all knowing about it.
I for one appreciate it that way.
Yeah,
Not
no,
knowing
I
any
think with
different,
all
but
of
I
us,
like
yeah,
it this
I
way.
agree.
I mean, I think we could certainly, if we think it's worthwhile, we can certainly create a committee moving forward regarding personnel. Again, I explained the reasons why I recommended the change for this year. It just seemed to make more sense.
No, I appreciate it too. I just kind of I wanted to know a little bit of the history, because I thought that's what it was, because that way we're all on the same page, we're all learning everything together. So no, I just kind of was trying to figure out how it was set up and so on.
But I mean, I think we're just fully informed. when
Yeah,
you-
this way.
it's
Oh, I
terrific.
don't, yeah,
think it's
I like
great.
the 2 meetings, because then I don't feel as pressured, and I can research some things too.
And I think a point that you had brought up, Marie, about not having a review, obviously the ball's been dropped there, and I don't know that you can point a finger at
No,
anybody
and I
in
don't want
particular,
to, I
but,
just
no,
wanted
I'm not
to-
suggesting
yeah.
you were, but I think probably a big part of that was the turnover we've experienced the last 4 or 5 years of the council. There's been a lot of new faces up here during that time. So I think that's probably something that we need to get on a schedule on a regular basis, whether it's every 2 or every 3 years. It's important to do. It's not an extreme fee for what you're getting, especially if it's going to be a positive impact for the employees.
Why did we go to a company to do this for us anyhow? I don't know who needs to answer that, if that's,
I wasn't here.
I wouldn't.
Does it say
I
Calissa?
wasn't either.
None of us were.
Calissa and Jim?
I was here.
Close is here.
The county decided to go with the company to do that, one, because we did not have any job descriptions. And as it was discussed, there were 21 grades, and there was no explanation as to why anybody was in a specific grade. So you come in and, there are 7, there are 9, there are 11. There's no one thing that you could pinpoint and say, this is exactly where you should be. And then, so then they would come in and they would request changes, and without having any kind of basis to go by, it was just whatever the mood was.
Who made those decisions?
The council? You mean to go with the company or on
The
grade
job descrip-
adjustments?
Yeah, the
That
job
was the
where
council.
everybody was before.
That-
Council made the decision where everybody was before.
Yeah, and
pay
I think
scale.
it was like in 2002,
Well, it
maybe, 1 or
started-
2.
In every department, the council made it.
It started out with that
Yeah.
study they did
It was
a
like,
year or 2 before we got here.
yeah, I think
And
it was in
then it just,
2001 or
it,
2002.
same thing, it was never really updated and just haphazardly, people got moved around and couldn't afford to give the steps that were prescribed, so they got split and added more grades and steps it was just kind of the same situation we're in now. It started with something and was never properly maintained.
Well, I think more specifically, what happened, that was study was done in the 90s and was
Yeah.
not implemented until 2001 or 2002. And
It was out of date when it
yes,
did it.
it was out of date. There was not any good descriptions. There was nothing. So it was just, they were put in a grade, and then in order to get to their step, it was, imagine this big grid. Here's grades down the side, steps across the top. And if you were making $30,000 at that time, you said, okay, you're a grade 7, to 30, boom, you fall in this square. So you're a grade 14, which it was supposed to be equate to the number of years, but you may have only been there 3 years because that person, the way it was done before, you went into what that position was paid at the time. So you may have a new person go into a position where somebody sat there for 25 years, they got their pay, and then they may be sitting next to somebody that'd been there 14, and they were making less than the person that started in it right then.
See where everybody just loved the heck out of it.
So, that's kind of how it was prior to 2001, 2002. So, like I said, so they got stuck into a step, but there was no basis for that step other than their pay, equaled that, or was close to that.
Council determined all those jobs? The council is who determined all those, who was
Well,
in each
this-
category?
No, well,
What a headache for the
from the
council.
study, they had the grades, but, and some of the positions may have changed or whatever, but they still stayed in that grade. And so they were put in there, and it was approved by the council at the time, and because that was the best fit. And then,
I wasn't on the council then.
and then,
I
like
wouldn't
I
want that
said,
responsibility.
yeah, and like I said, and then as time went on, people would move, courts would come in and ask for a change, and they'd get changed. Well, then next thing you know, somebody else would come in and say, hey, we fall under that too. So then they got changed, and then it just was kind of an ongoing thing. It wasn't,
No rhyme or reason?
no,
Not at all.
because you didn't know, there was no basis. You couldn't explain why anybody was at the grade that they were at.
Yeah, I stepped on your question there.
When WIS was picked, was there anybody else? Were there any other choices at the time?
That, I don't recall anybody else at that time.
President Loudermilk, can I
Yes,
ask a
yeah,
question? And I'm
sure.
not sure procedure, but considering this is obviously a relationship with the council, but also human resources will be dealing with it as well, are we able to call Kara up to the microphone?
Yes.
Sorry to put you on the spot. Something I would like to hear, because I always feel like when you compare things, you can find strengths in everything and you can find concerns in both. So is there something about the Baker Tilly and the WIS that you feel is a strength for them? And then is your concern about each?
I would tell you that WIS, my concern is that they're not starting from scratch. They're taking what they've already started with, just looking back at it. Personally, I think that that's not to do it. In fact, what they originally sent, point number 2 said, responsibility of the department heads and elected officials to review those job descriptions. I think we'd be better off starting from scratch. I think we need to start over. There are too many of them already bad, and if you're gonna do what you have and move forward with it without sitting down and talking to somebody, I think you're going to end up with a lot of anger. Yes, they have a lot of history. That's good about them. They said they are an HR consulting firm. How many times have they talked to HR? There's only talked once, and I had to force them. So they don't work with HR. They work with Melissa. That doesn't help. That's not, we have an HR department. So that concerns me. Baker Tilly's already said they'll talk to everybody. So they're willing to be open and discuss it. And I find that as an asset versus just keeping the way we've done.
Is there anything like, and I'm not an HR person by any means, but even other than the procedural part of it that you feel like is a strength too on them?
I like the fact that which one?
And either of them,
Well,
like.
I like the fact that Baker Tilly's going to teach you their process. They're there for your help, they're there to think, to consult if you have issues, but I think it's important for us to know what that is and how that's being done, and I think it's important for us to be able to sit back and as bringing to the council and say, we ran it process, this is what we see, I think we need further. I like that process. I think it makes us think about it, and we're not handing it off to somebody else to do it and then just taking whatever they say. We've invested our time into our people, and not said enough that the employees run this place. Nobody gets anything done without the rest of our employees, and if nobody's listening to them, we're not getting there.
Okay. And then since I asked you kind of for a negative, is there anything about Baker Tilly that concerns you, like negative-wise, other than
No, I
maybe
mean,
not as
granted,
much
they
government
have
experience?
not had as much experience in Indiana, but they are only a public firm too. They don't deal with private firms. I mean, they're both equal when they say they deal with public. They both deal with government. And yes, WIS has more experience in Indiana, and they know some history about the county. So, I mean, those are all good things. I just would like to I would like to see them throw out everything they've had, not take the job descriptions they've already started with. To me, that's a
That'd be
hindrance.
better.
That's gonna cause.
Okay, which would be something maybe we can address. Okay, thank you, I appreciate it.
Anybody else before I go?
Sorry to put you in the hot
Oh,
seat.
no, no
I'm
worries.
just really talking a lot tonight, I'm good.
That's okay.
You said you were done.
That's okay.
I've talked enough these last few days. I know.
Anyone else? I would say, a point Kara had was WIS maybe not starting over, and I don't know if that's even a realistic possibility at this point, if they could start from scratch. I don't know. I don't know if you asked them if they could start over and scrap everything and go from square one. I don't know if that's a possibility, but, obviously we have an issue with not having done an analysis 2 or 3 years out like we should have. I mean, quite frankly, if that's the timetable you should be at, we should be working on our second analysis. So we're at very least behind on that. I have to be honest, I feel like maybe we're on different ends of the spectrum on this, but for me, I kind of like the idea of somebody not within the confines of this building making the decisions on classifications and how those play out and how those adjustments are made. From what I've understood, the step and grade system, there was a lot of politics that were injected into it, and a lot of problems were created because of it. Too much discretion at times, from what I understand. Obviously, I wasn't around at that time, so I can't really speak to any knowledge or personal experience from that. But I would just be concerned that if we had one person making all those decisions, that's a lot of pressure for one person inside the walls of any building that we have. That could play very hard on them at times. So I guess that's my overriding concern at this point. I don't know how everybody else feels about that.
I definitely concur.
So, help me understand too, so once with Baker Tilly, I mean, is there still involvement like what we have with WIS? Like if they need reevaluation and stuff?
What do you mean?
Like afterwards, after they do the studies? I know like Baker Tilly's selling point was that they would train and work with HR and support that, but are they still, just as we've reached out to WIS, is there, I guess that's a question for them. Yeah,
I mean,
like,
it's-
like how we reach out now.
They said they would, but it's my understanding they generally don't do that. They rely on your HR department to handle those requests, but they are available if you do have questions as consultants. But from what I understood last week, the maintenance was primarily through HR department. Is that how you understood it, Kara?
But they,
Right, but primarily HR handles all those decisions. That's what was told to us last week. I think maybe, we need to get some clarification on that from Baker Tilly then, because that was a direct question I'd asked her last week, and she said, from what I recall, that it was primarily HR that did those things. However, there was times when government entities would contact them and ask for any recommendations or any assistance that they may need, but you essentially lean on your HR department to make those decisions moving forward. Okay, that'd be great, thank you.
did I not understand Addie to say that she has the same type of relationship with the council or the personnel committees after the fact as well? I mean, do they not give us all the personnel committee or whatever, all of the tools to make those decisions afterwards too, and if they were still available? Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought that's what they said too, that they would give us the tools to do that as well.
To where we could make those
To where we could make those
determinations here.
Yeah, as a person,
Right.
in the past, it's been a personnel committee, whatever, that made those decisions after the fact too, which is a little bit better than just one person.
Any other thoughts about either WIS or Baker Tilly? Any discussion about any other topics? Very quiet group tonight.
Give a shout out for Labor Day weekend and to all of our laborers. A lot of history there, so the history teacher's saying that. But I won't go into a lesson. I'll keep it short.
Thank you. No.
All right. Next meeting is next Tuesday. So Sunshine meeting next Tuesday. There's
Labor Day dinner
nothing,
next Monday.
Yep.
there's nothing further. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion on the floor by Councilwoman Wilson, second by Councilman Norris. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.